Max, let's go to the hotline and bring in the play-by-play voice of the Texas Longhorns, as well as the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer, my co-host on High School Scoreboard Live on Fox Sports Southwest. We're pleased to be rejoined by Craig Way, and I know, you haven't. It's been a couple weeks since you talked with Max, our producer. Did you guys have a nice talk about the World Series?
Oh, just wasted about 20 minutes of your time talking about his Boston to Big Bend sojourn and my out and back from. I said nobody's ever done Boston to Big Bend, and they probably haven't done Stillwater to Dodger Stadium in 18 hours either. Wow. So we were both kind of living the dream there over the weekend.
You sure were. Texas high school football has now reached week 10 of the regular season, and you on Monday when we talked on your show, you used a word that I was particularly fond of, and I can't stop using now, which is undercurrent. The undercurrent is kind of what we saw change in week 10. Or week 9, rather. We saw a lot of the undercurrent. The top line, if you're just looking over the top of the water, you're not going to see a whole lot of ripples. But it sure seems like, and I'm interested in your thoughts, it sure seems like the results that we saw on Friday night and Saturday ended up kind of changing the guts of the playoffs rather than maybe the top line.
I agree with you. I think we're at DEFCON 2 right now. Next Friday night will be DEFCON 1. Yeah. When you get down to that finals, who's getting in and who's not getting in, and all that stuff about the ones that are sitting on the ledge and looking at it, and you can find examples all across the state. My go-to this year, at least the past 6 weeks, has been that crazy 13-5A Division II, and there's another example of it. Leander Glenn, this great story of a first-year varsity program, loses out of all places Marble Falls, although I give the Marble Falls kids a lot of credit. Several were displaced by the flooding in the Highland Lakes and didn't really have homes to go to, and they went out and beat the district leader for their first district win. So that was heartwarming and inspiring to see them do that. What it also did, the unintended consequences, there's all kinds of stuff with the top 6 playing each other. So all that paddling furiously beneath the surface is going on, and you're going to have Brenham and Glenn, and you're going to have Bastrop and Elgin, and you're going to have Cedar Creek and Eastview, and all of it matters. And that's just one district, Tep, because as we know, there's stuff like that happening all across the state, from the Panhandle of the Rio Grande Valley, from Texarkana out to the aforementioned Big Bend region and all points in between.
Yeah, it is. It's wild, and that's why our playoff projections at TexasFootball.com were kind of shaking out what these things are going to look at. But there's still a ton of moving parts. The great thing I think about this time of year, Craig, is that especially at this exact moment here, entering Week 10 with still 2 weeks left to play, we have, I think, we have a half-baked cake. We have a cake that has been half-baked. But there is still so much that can upend everything in the playoffs that we have an idea of where things might go. But inevitably, these next 2 weeks are going to change. It seems like everything is up for grabs still. There's some. We know teams like Katie's getting in the playoffs, right? And they're playing out the string at this point. But it does seem like we're now at that kind of sweet spot where we know just enough to feel confident, and also we don't know enough that we can be left surprised on Friday night.
Yeah, now you're probably too young to have experienced this. But when I was a kid, and my mom would make a cake, and you'd start to walk in the house, you'd always get, "Don't slam the door." You didn't want the cake to drop. You didn't want that cake to fall by creating some big rumbling noise to make the cake drop. Well, that's where we are right now with that, because all it takes is one well-placed upset in a tightly bunched district race to throw the entire thing into chaos and make that cake drop. So to use your analogy, the cake is half-baked, but it only takes one door slam to make it all fall, and that's why this is going to be a lot of fun to watch. There's a lot of weird stuff happening, as you know, in East Texas with some district races and some stuff that's up for grabs.
We're talking with Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer here on Texas Football Today. Get involved with the conversation, #TF Today. Craig, there's a couple of schools that I want to briefly look back at Week 9, and there's one result that I can't really wrap my head around, and I can't exactly figure out exactly what I think of it. and that is Shadow Creek's come from behind win over Richmond Foster. This was a game that was out of reach, and then suddenly 34-7, late in the third quarter, and then Shadow Creek roars back and wins it to stay unbeaten. I'm of a couple of minds where I think Foster is actually going to be a tough out, and I think that if you look at that district, you could end up having three or maybe four teams in a regional semifinal out of that district. After sitting on it a little bit, what are your feelings on that particular result as far as is it a harbinger of things to come for Shadow Creek, or was it maybe just a 1 week snafu against a good team?
Yeah, that's the grand question. Here's the thing. Remember, Tap, on Friday, we said that district, at least from the very early in the season, there were three teams out of that district that were ranked in the top 10 at one point in the season. So it's a quality district, and I don't think folks should look too askance at an escape for a first-year varsity program over a team that isn't that long in the tooth, Richmond Foster, but has had some quality postseason experience and understands what late season games are all about. So it didn't flip me out too much on that. However, it did remind me, and here's the irony, because we were talking about this in the offseason about Shadow Creek pulling kids off that otherwise would have been zoned into Manville in the past. And all of a sudden, I remember when Manville was first starting up, they had some experiences like that. So there's some irony involved there. I think Shadow Creek is a really good team. Now, first-year varsity program, there's a lot of folks who don't know exactly how far this thing could go for them. Are they a legitimate top 10 team? I think so. And if you're a legitimate top 10, I think you're good enough to be a quarterfinal or a semifinalist. Things happen late in the regular season or mid-season that kind of throws other stuff out of whack. Here's an example. I was talking with Todd Dodge, the head coach at Westlake today, and I asked him about, has there been, and our coaches fighting against, and our high school programs fighting against a devaluing of a district championship. And because of 4 teams in the playoffs now, and you can kind of win the whole thing without winning a district title. That's already been on display many times. Could it be like that? And he said, I agree with you. He said one thing that's helped make it better, and I thought about this as well, is getting to play a by-district playoff game at home does add some more value to being the top seed, whether in the D1 bracket or the D2 bracket. That's important. But he mentioned another point, and he said this. He said, I pointed out to our kids, we want to win the district title. They've already beaten Lake Travis. They've got Anderson left, and then they've got Bowie in week 10, and they're probably going to win the district title. He said, since I've been here, Westlake has been to the quarterfinals, at least has advanced beyond the quarterfinal. They have, I think he said, 4 quarterfinal championships during that time in 6 years. 4 quarterfinal championships. Only one time out of that were they a district champion. So if 4, I said, so let me get this straight. You've taken 4 different teams at Westlake to the Final Four, and only one of them had a district title. He said, yeah. He said, now you can look at Lake Travis and say there's the reason why. He said, but that is an explanation for why the district title is important. My point about all of this is that even if you fall by the wayside in a late season loss, which came very close to happening for Shadow Creek, but did not, then obviously there's still time, and you learn things from it. And we even talked about his loss to Cy Ranch, who's now a top 10 team. He said we were all disgusted by that fourth quarter collapse when they had 21-3. Now, the further they've gotten away from it and what they've seen Cy Ranch do since, it's like, yeah, it was a good team that took advantage when we weren't on our game coming off the Belton game. So, there are lessons to be learned here. Fortunately, for teams that are going to go to the postseason, Tap, they're learning the lessons during the time of the regular season where it doesn't cripple them, and then they can carry those experiences into the playoffs.
We're at the time of the interview now, Craig, where I give you 3 games and I make you pick one. It's a nice week. It's actually a really, really nice slate of games across the state. It's particularly loaded. We finally, after a couple weeks off, we got a really big week in DFW. There's a big week in Central Texas, big week in East Texas. Actually, an excellent week in El Paso, too, if you're out there in the Sun City. I will give you you these three from three different regions of the state. You can either go to Highland Park in Lancaster, a Lancaster team that I think everyone has forgotten about, by the way, but it's really good. Or you can go to Temple and Midway in Central Texas. Or you can go down south and you can go to Geronimo Navarro at Cuero. Which of those three games, three different classifications, three different parts of the state, which one tickles your fancy most?
Not by much, but I'd give me Cuero Navarro. We find out a little bit more, certainly, about Navarro, and we get an even better measurement of just how serious a state championship contender Cuero is after this week. All of that is important, and I do like the possibilities of what could happen at that ballgame. Highland Park, I'm got to the point with Highland Park and Carthage where I'm a little bit jaded, like, yeah, I know they're going to be there. I know they're going to be there. Let me check back with you when we get to the quarterfinals. You know, it's kind of almost like that for me right now. So maybe I'm a little bit jaded where the Scots are concerned, although I do agree with you that a lot of folks have just flat out forgot about Lancaster and what they can do. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. So I would probably shade toward Navarro Cuero.
Well, especially in 4A Division 2, which is just so up in the air, that if one of these teams can emerge and look like a state title contender, it might just be them then. I mean, you know, because it is so wide open there in 4A Division 2. I think I agree with you. Navarro and Cuero is going to be an excellent game down there, and a real prove-it game for a Cuero team that's getting healthier, a Navarro team that you know, they're Navarro, and they're going to be there every single year. He is Craig Way. He's a Texas High School Football Hall of Famer. Follow him on Twitter at CraigWay1, and make sure you listen to his wonderful, you know, the high school. It's the High School Spotlight. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
There you go. The High School Spotlight on the Horn in Austin, and then, of course, see his fine work on Fox Sports Southwest, 11 o'clock, High School Scoreboard Live. Craig, appreciate your time, my friend. I will see you on Friday.
Look forward to it, Tab. Thanks.
There he goes. Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer, joins us every week, every Wednesday, here on Texas Football Today. Yeah, Navarro, and the more I think about it, Navarro and Cuero is more and more, like, intriguing me more and more.
Because, yeah, well, it is because 482 is wide open. And look, like, if you're going gangbusters, like atmosphere and everything else, I think you have to go with Temple Midway.
Yes, agree with that.
But I think Temple is probably more of a slight favorite in that game, not quite as questionable.
The other thing I'll say about that game, the one thing that has me interested about Midway and Temple are the playoff implications, because there is a fair chance that the loser of this game has to go to Longview in round one, which is instant death.
You don't want that.
No, you don't.
That's legitimately, I mean, like, that's a game I would sit there and say, especially for Temple, if Temple ends up playing Longview in the game, that's a state semifinal caliber game.
Absolutely.
In the first round.
And Step and I were talking about this when we were recording Tep and Step.
Yeah.
There's a couple of teams. Lancaster is one of them. John Tyler is another one. There's a few teams that I think because they had a down year last year combined with a slow start this year, we've kind of forgotten about them. But if you take a look at them, you're like, oh, you're really good again.
Yeah, still got some dudes.
So it's an interesting week in Texas high school football. We appreciate Craig Way hopping on with us.